how crazy is this? We are essentially at the start of the next season that is coming up. I mean, training camp starts in 2 days for a lot of NBA teams, September 22nd for anybody curious on the dates. I think opening season for the Celtics is going to be October 18th. I don't remember if they're uh, preseason wise, if they're one of the first games, but either way, NBA season is upon us. Preseason games are upon us. We're going to have a lot of, training camp photos going around, which makes everybody hyped.
Yeah, you got
And
media day. Media day's great.
yep.
You get all the optimism, all the jokes, all the early memes. Like it's always a fun
And
time.
wasn't that when Kawhi did the "I'm the funniest guy, I'm a hilarious guy"? The
Yeah, yeah, of course. Look, oh
oh, I
man,
love it. I love it. So we are there's been some drama in the NBA. We're gonna get into
that's an
all of it.
understatement.
Yeah, but for warm up jumpers, it's not necessarily drama, but ESPN came out with their top 100 list. They've been dropping it randomly. And before we get into it, I was kind of telling you this off the mic. This was my beef with ESPN's list. This week on, I think it was Tuesday, they dropped um, 10 through 6, which is fine. But at that point, you might as well already drop 1 through 5. Like, we know who your top 5 is going to be. I just want to know where they lay out. Like, just drop it all. It's hard to argue 10 through 6 when you don't have a definitive 1 through 5. Like, because once you start debating people should move up or down, you got to start saying who's coming down and who's moving up. And so when you don't have half the list, that was kind of a problem. But either way, we are here. We have our full list for the NBA rankings of they're 1 through 100. I guess how do you want me to do this? You want me to start at 10 and work my way up? Do
Yeah,
you want me to start
let's
at
do top.
1?
Let's do top 10. We'll talk about some of the other highlights, I guess, from the other 100. We're obviously not going to
Yeah.
sit here and read 100 players in a row, but
Yeah.
yeah, let's do top 10. Let's go from 10 to 1.
So at number 10, you have Devin Booker for the Phoenix Suns. Last year, he was ranked number 15. So he moved up a good bit. Ja Morant moved up a lot. He's at number 9, up from number 31 last year. Kevin Durant sits number 8, which I think might be a little bit of a pressure point he drops. He was number 1 last year. And then you got Jason Tatum at number 7. He was number 14 last year. He moved up. LeBron drops down 3 spots. He is at number 6. And we can keep going from there. Steph Curry, they have ranked number 5, which is exactly where he was last year. So stays put, I guess. Joel Embiid jumps up from 7 to number 4 on this list, which then leaves Luka at number 3. He moves up 1 spot. He was at number 4 last year. Jokic is number 2. He moves up from number 6 last year, which leaves Giannis as the number 1 guy in the NBA. I would say first few things that stuck out to me while reading that was KD, Steph, and LeBron seem kind of low. And I get it. I feel like we're going with the younger player hype with some of the guys like Luka moving up a little bit. Like I feel like Steph probably should still be over Luka, right?
Yeah, Steph not being 1 or 2 is insane. Like really the year after he just lit up the finals against one of the best defenses we've ever seen in recent years. Like, what exactly did Steph Curry need to do to get the votes number 1?
Right.
I'm fine with Giannis at 1. I think Giannis is the best player in the league right now. If you want to say Steph is 1, though, I'm not really going to argue with you. Like, you've got pretty much everything is right there. If I'm picking one game, I'm taking those 2 guys. They both have the experience. I mean, I know Steph's been in more meaningful games, but like Giannis led the Bucks to finals just 2 years ago. We're not about to just throw that out of the picture.
So if that's the case, I mean,
That's insane to
obviously
me.
Jokic is number 2, which I guess from he won the MVP vote conversation makes sense to be at number 2. But honestly, I mean, like you said, I'd probably have Steph up there before him. I like the idea because Embiid and him were neck and neck, having them just essentially like 3 or 4 or 4 or 5, wherever you want to put them on that list, like right next to each other, because that was a tight race. I feel like the big argument against Embiid towards the end of the season was James Harden was there and took a lot of the scoring load off him, where Jokic had to do it solo without his second best player the whole season. So I feel like that was a big argument there in terms of the MVP race. So just putting them next to each other on the list is fine. I wonder if there is an optics side of it though, because he won MVP, that you can't really put him lower.
Am I allowed to say this as a Sixers fan? I would put Jokic higher. Like, I would. I love Embiid to death. Like,
Well, no,
he's my
no,
favorite. He's my favorite player in the NBA. But like, Jokic should be higher than Embiid right now. Like,
no,
I
no, no,
think
I agree. He should be
Jokic
higher
is
than
easier
him.
to build around.
But is he number 2?
I don't think he should be 2. I think he should
Yeah,
be.
that's
I
what
don't
I'm
think
talking
it's.
about.
I don't think 2 is most egregious. Like, that's not the most egregious part. Like, if you want to argue Jokic as high as 3 or 4, I wouldn't think it's really that
Sure.
ridiculous. I think Giannis and Steph should be 1 and 2. I think KD should be 3. KD at 8 is ridiculous. Like, I know the Nets just got bounced and were a dramatic mess, but like, give me a break. Like, that's just unserious. That's too much recency bias there. I don't have it as much with LeBron. Like, LeBron is getting older at this point. Like,
He's
the
still
injuries have hit.
he was so good last season.
He
Though. Like, I
was,
get it, the Lakers were bad, but
I don't think defensively he's the player he once was. Like, I guess my point is that he's definitely a top 10 player still, but I think 6 is probably right for LeBron in current version, which feels weird to say because you're right, because LeBron was number 1 for what, 12 years at least minimum. There was nobody even, I mean, knocking on the door. It was always just a given that LeBron was number 1. I mean, I would be inclined to put, like, Luka should be up there for sure. I think Jokic should be up there. I think Embiid should be up there. Like, my next 4 after Giannis, Steph, and KD, I'm pretty locked into as my 1, 2, 3. My next 4 in some order would be Jokic, Embiid, Luka, and who are we? LeBron. I think those 4 would be, that's who I'm looking at then. And then at that point, that's where it gets way more subjective. And I guess that's why with ESPN, I think that's where the more debate happens, in my opinion, like with 8 through 10. Because even for me, like, I think Tatum is definitely a top 10 player. He should be on this list somewhere. And honestly, you could argue that Tatum is pretty close to that tier with LeBron and with Embiid. Like, you could make pretty convincing arguments that he's better than them and is right there too. So I don't have any issue with that. The hardest one for me to place is Jimmy Butler, because I would take Jimmy in a playoff game, in a meaningful game. It's hard for me to find 10 players that I would take over Jimmy. But if we're talking for the regular season too, then it's a different story. Like, yeah, for the whole collective. But to me, Jimmy Butler's a top 10 player. I think he showed that last year. I feel like he has to be on that list somewhere. And then it's where do you put the young guys? Like, has Ja done enough in your eyes? Is Book done enough now? I think CP3 probably has dropped out correctly. Dame, again, tough with the injuries, but I think he's another one that you would place in there.
Just for continuity, Chris Paul is at number 21. I'm currently looking for Jimmy Butler.
Where's Kawhi Leonard?
Kawhi was 12, right behind James Harden at 11.
See, I feel like I know the injuries are there, and that's why it's so tough with Kawhi to place him. But if Kawhi is healthy, he has to be top 10.
Here we go. Jimmy Butler is number 17, right behind number 16, Trae Young, right before Rudy Gobert at number 18.
I'm fine with Trae and Rudy being in those ranges is fine. I don't really have a problem with that.
You know who else? Well, sorry, not to cut you off, but while we're here, Dame Lillard's at 14. I think I get it, he didn't play last year, but 14. I mean, Dame's. I feel like he could probably pop himself up higher on that list as well.
Man, I'm tough because I think Dame and James Harden, I think, are really going to be tough to place because there's a lot riding on this year. Like, you could drop them way out of the top 10 and even close to that conversation, depending on how this year goes. Honestly, and I love what I've seen from Harden in the offseason, but Harden even at 11 feels like it may be a reach at this point.
With how negative everybody was on him at the end of the season, 11 seems kind of high. I mean, if I'm Jimmy, I'm probably a little offended that Harden.
Jimmy being 17 is unserious. Like, Jimmy should be higher just off that playoff run alone. Like, what more do you need to see?
That's what I mean. Like, Jimmy should be offended that Kawhi, James Harden, and who was it? Who were we just?
Hang on. Kawhi is fine.
But they didn't play last year, and I get it.
Kawhi's got 2 championships. You're gonna put Kawhi in that tier with Jimmy?
That injury risk, though, like, we just don't know what he's going to look like.
But Kawhi's not the one I'm mad about. If you want to be upset about Harden, that's fine. Kawhi's not the one where I'm like,
and I get it. Dame's healthy, and he just did, like, last year was what it was. But like, if I'm Jimmy, I'd be like, yo, why am I behind him
Jimmy's
right now?
going way further in the playoffs than Dame ever has.
Right.
And that's
I know.
that's no disrespect to Dame, but like I just watched Jimmy almost put the Heat over the Celtics last year. I know almost don't really count. He made the finals the year in the bubble. Like Jimmy's shown up at every single big game possible. Like that's why it's hard for me to not have him as a top 10 player, because every meaningful game he gets it done.
It's crazy. The Timberwolves have 3 players in between 25 and 11. Anthony Edwards at 25.
And that could go way higher. Ant's one of those
Yeah.
guys that I think could jump up real quick.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert is number 18, and I saw Cat. Where was he? Cat is sitting at number 13.
Okay.
So, I mean, it could be. I think they're going to be an interesting team this year. We've already talked about that, though. You can go find our episode on that trade and where we think that's going to land up.
Yeah, they're the most intriguing just because we don't know what the fit is going to look like. And so, but if it works, I mean, it could work really well. It's just, it's very unconventional compared to what other NBA teams have been doing. So I think that's why I'm interested too. Like they're building around the paint. And I know Cat stretches the floor, but like Cat is 7 feet tall. Like, let's not act
the
like
dude is a
Klay
big
Thompson
dude.
all of a sudden.
Right.
But switching gears a little bit, we did have a trade early on in the NBA. And we are going to talk about Ime Udoka after the break. Like that is our main segment here. Don't worry, that is coming. But we do have a little bit, the Utah Jazz. We said they weren't done, of course. Bogdanovic is on the move, going to Detroit for Kelly Olynyk in what's basically, I mean, this is a salary kind of dump thing, obviously, for both. But I got to be honest, Justin, I really like this trade a lot. And I mean a lot for Detroit. I think this is Detroit. Like, this is going to get a good good established veteran to play with these younger guys, to, help Cade Cunningham, help Jaden Ivey, Sadiq Bey, etc., build off all the things that we saw last year, and kind of take those steps. Like that's a move. Detroit's one of the intriguing teams in the Eastern Conference. I don't think they're going to take like a Cleveland-esque leap, but they are one that could get better with the right habits. And I think they do have a bona fide star in the making in Cade Cunningham. I think these are the type of moves that, I mean, not only is it a good move in the sense for that, I think it helps Detroit. If he stays there for the whole year, like I think there's no, it's only a benefit to have him there. He's not going to lose his value either. Like that's the other reality is like if Bogdanovic goes out there in Detroit and lights it up for the first half of the season, pretty much every contender is probably going to come knocking for his services. I mean, there are already reports that Phoenix was really trying hard to land him. Couldn't get it done because they wanted Jared Vanderbilt included, if you believe the reports. But I mean, like his services are still going to be in high demand.
Well, like you said, I mean, the Pistons were one of the worst teams at 3-point percentage. So at a minimum, he's going to boost that, right? He's a 39% 3-point shooter. Like you said, veteran presence. Like I think it's a fun fit. It's a great fit. It's a fit that shows Pistons fans they're ready to make that turn from rebuild to let's start being successful. Let's start winning games. Let's do this. You know what I mean? Like that's what that move told me, and I'm all about it. Let's see some Pistons dubs on the board.
Yeah, now for the Jazz, I got to be honest, I'm a little surprised just because I think I feel like you probably could have got a first for Bogdanovic, and I guess we'll see what the market looked like here over the next few days, but it sure felt like that there was a chance that, they got something of real value. With Kelly Olynyk, I mean, you for sure can do more with the books later, and I guess that's the thing is like there can be more moves to be made. Like Utah's going to be looking at everything possible. So it's not really the end of the world. And I guess in Utah's sense, like if you've got Bogdanovic going into camp, we mentioned camp about to get underway. Like with Utah, you're clearly playing all your young guys this year. Like you're in a process type season. Like you're trying to throw everybody out there, see who sticks, who can play meaningful basketball for you potentially going forward. And so, just by virtue of clearing that roster spot, like Bogdanovic is going to take time away from any of those younger guys. But it is. I'm a little surprised just because I think of everybody that's left there. Jordan Clarkson and Mike Conley Jr. are still there as well. Mike Conley Jr. I think that's the first time I've ever said his full name in like years. But those two guys you would imagine get moved at some point. But I don't know. I'm surprised. I thought Bogdanovic probably the most value out of those three. So I'm a little surprised to just see him get moved in what's essentially like a salary filler deal.
Well, and on top of that, if I'm the Jazz, I'm now looking at Jarrett Vanderbilt. Like, all right, what were the Suns really super intrigued about him? Like numbers wise, is there an advanced stat thing that was really popping out to him? Trying to go back to the table at him, be like, all right, what can we get out of him for this now? Like
No,
he
he's
was
one
a
of those
part of.
guys you throw out. Like Jared
Yeah,
Vanderbilt's the perfect type of player who should be playing for Utah this year. Like let them get let him get minutes, see
get a
what you
minute.
have. And again, I think we'll see what happens. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Clarkson or Conley got dealt here in the coming days. Like I think Utah is going to be wheeling and dealing all season. Um,
Probably, yeah.
and even with Olynyk, and I mean Saban Lee was in this trade too, but we'll kind of see what happens on that front. But a little surprised on that end. But for Detroit, makes all the sense in the world. Like I think this is a great move for the Pistons. Good type of pickup for them going into training camp. Having a solid vet in that locker room and somebody who does he will immediately raise the floor of the Pistons a little bit here too, as they are. They're not trying to go for the number one pick anymore. Like they're actively trying to win games. Going and getting Bogdanovic is a good way to actively win games.
Vanderbilt, by the way, just looked him up. Regular season last season per 100 possessions, about 13 points per game and close to 16 rebounds. So maybe that's what the Suns were looking at as a potential, uh, bench player for their team. So we'll see where that goes. But either way, like I said, just to reiterate, I think it's a great move for Pistons, like you were saying, and I love it for it's a show the fans we're ready to make the transition to winning some games move, and here
They're
we
be
are.
fun. They're a
Mhm.
sleeper fun team to watch this year. Like on the league pass rankings, they were, they're nowhere near the bottom like they used to be. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Do I have college eligibility? If I went back to play another sports beside basketball, how does that rule work?
LeBron's
Question mark.
trolling so hard because the 38-year-old LeBron is not going back to play college football, and he's insane if he goes back to play college
Listen,
football.
maybe he's going back to play golf. Him and
No, that's what I
J.R.
mean. That's what.
Smith.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Get up to J.R. Smith. Play golf. Go play tennis. Go
Yeah.
play. Go swim. Go
Yeah,
play
maybe,
water polo.
Federer's retiring. Maybe LeBron was motivated by that. Watch that. Like maybe,
That
maybe
was
it's not
awesome, by
football.
the way. Like, I'm not a
Yeah.
tennis guy at all like that. But man, they sent him out right. That was great.
I saw a video, or it was a meme. Federer, maybe it was Nadal he played against in like 2007. There was some rank that like one was better on grass court and the other
Oh
one was
yeah,
better on
yeah.
clay. So they played a
Yep.
half and half, like to see who was better. That's wild.
That is wild. And it's great. It is that like because again with the surfaces, like dude, Nadal's unbeatable on clay usually. Like I think Federer only got him on clay because the French Open's on clay, and that he
Mhm.
got him once, and it was vice versa on grass. Like Nadal beat Federer in Wimbledon on grass, and it's just it's crazy how much of a difference that makes. Like you
Well, it's
wonder,
just cool. Like, there's no other sport where you really could do that. You know
could
what I
you
mean?
imagine
Like,
what would the NBA like? Because obviously it's hardwood. Like what other
yeah,
surface would it be? I mean, I guess blacktop if you do,
yeah.
but that
Maybe it's
just is
like,
so painful.
yeah, something about like I don't know, like if you're a good street baller compared to like in an arena court, I don't know, like you'd make it, but it still wouldn't work because I don't know, like it it, it
I
works
would
so
like to see a
perfectly.
shooting splits if it was outdoors versus indoors.
Yeah, but it's the thing with like tennis is like even then if you're doing like a half outdoor half indoor court, you still have to play defense on the one you're not good as. Whereas tennis, like they were on what they were best as for offense and defense. Like it didn't
Yeah.
change for them. So like I really don't know where you could do something like that similar.
Basketball would be wild if they
Maybe
had outdoor
volleyball.
games.
Maybe volleyball if someone's really good indoor and
Oh,
and
yeah,
other are good
and
at
and in
beach.
beach, yeah, for sure, because that's a huge difference. Because in
Yeah.
beach, it takes so much more, obviously, like,
That's what I mean. Like
exertion to
you would
be running
have
around on sand like that.
you would have such an advantage on a court for volleyball, I would
Yeah,
imagine, in that scenario. So I don't know. Like even then it kind of doesn't work where like, yeah, sure, you can make an argument that maybe somebody had an advantage with the grass court or the clay court, but it's like we picked it to do this specifically because they were like undefeated in both. So
I'm
like
just
up for them
picturing
respective.
I'm picturing the NBA game outside right now, like, in the woods somewhere, they have a
Be
random
cool.
court, and then just, like but it's super windy for some reason, like, it's just kind of a, like,
Oh god.
fall day, and, like, these shots are drifting, and it just goes fully back to old school ball. It's just, like it's
Oh
going ISO in the paint
yeah.
every single possession.
It would
Um,
be it would be cool if the NBA started doing that like hockey does where they do like one or two, like a week of outside games. Like that would be fun.
yeah, I think so. It's just the elements would factor in
Yeah.
too much. Like
It'd be
that's
too
the I
much.
don't want somebody pulling up for three and the ball's just drifting right. Like, come on, man.
Just
Like nobody
complete
wants to see
air
that.
ball. You had no
Yeah.
chance of making that
Yeah,
shot. Yeah, I
somebody
agree.
shoots a free throw, the ball goes backwards somehow. It's just like, yo, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, but leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep. And we are on YouTube. Like we've said before, you can find us, Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube. We have 50. We just hit 50
Sick.
subscribers.
All right.
So we are
Congratulations.
looking,
Who's Zach Randolph? Do you know?
it doesn't. So the last person was John, but we shouted out John last week. So whoever subscribed to be number 50, we didn't get a notification about them. Maybe it's a privacy setting on their YouTube account. But we did not get a notification for whoever our Zach Randolph is. But we are looking for 51 now. So if you want to be 51, you can give us a follow there and see video versions of the podcast. We have retired the NBA Wordle because we are just too damn good at it.
I'm still floored about that Ibaka one, bro. That is so ridiculous. Best 51 probably is Reggie King, by the way.
Okay.
That would be, which is a good one, honestly. He was really solid. I'd have to go look. There's a couple other ones up. There's like Joe Folks from way back in the day. Like he was a sixer in the 50s. But yeah, so either way though, get Reggie King.
By
That's
the
a
way,
solid one.
I would like to show you something. Because I was curious, okay? Because I was curious, I pulled up NBA Wordle.
Oh God, it's
Okay?
probably super easy. This who is it?
I looked at the silhouette, okay?
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I looked at the silhouette. First guess, got it. Tyler Hero.
The silhouette, that's the thing, is like the silhouette to me, if you reasonably are familiar, because it's never somebody that's like a 15th man. And that's always kind of the thing. It's nobody where, it's not a two-way player. It's not somebody who had a call up for a 10-day.
Yeah.
But I mean, the silhouette does, because I mean, and it just helps too. Like, yeah, a lot of these NBA guys have more unique hair. You can kind of.
I literally, like, as you were talking about it, I pulled it up, looked, and I went, that looks like Tyler Hero. Put it in, boom, got it first try. Here we are. We're done.
Man, it had a great run. Like, I did appreciate, bro. I really just appreciate the name, honestly. Because
I had an idea. Oh, wait, hold on. We can do like a little bit behind the scenes of prepping our NBA show. I had an idea. It was on NBA Reddit. I'm not going to take credit for it. What was it called? It was called Good Game Random Player. So we talk about a random remember how we used to do random player? We used to do
random
like a
NBA
deep
player
dive
of the week.
Yeah. What if we did Good Game Random Player, where we pick a random player? Say for me, I would pick TJ McConnell. When I saw him down in Orlando against the Magic, he had close to a triple double and a game winner. Like we talk about that game. We bring up their stats. We shout them out for that moment. It'd be kind of cool to talk about. You know what
always random good game that I will think of is when Andre Miller dropped 52 points for the Portland Trailblazers. I think his previous career high was like 27 or something like that. And Andre Miller was a really good NBA player for a while. Like he had well over a 10-year career. But it was just like, wait, he did what now?
You made me think of which one was didn't OJ Mayo have like a crazy game?
Corey Brewer had 50.
Yeah, I feel like OJ Mayo had a crazy game at one point. Yeah.
That sounds right.
He had a 40. Oh, no, this was not in the NBA. I feel like he did. I feel like I remember us talking about OJ Mayo.
OJ Mayo was supposed to be the guy. Like, he was one of those high school prospects. Like, he was billed. I mean, it's cliche to say is billed as high as LeBron was, because they're not. But like OJ Mayo was that guy in high school. Like everyone thought he was going to be the next great thing. And I mean, he had a couple good NBA years, but yeah, obviously never was the mega star that he kind of was projected to be.
OJ Mayo had a 40-point game, including 10 in the last 3 minutes, to lift the Mavs to a 116-109 victory over the Rockets in Coach Kevin McHale's return to Houston. Chris Kaman scored half as many points for the Dallas Mavericks. All right.
Okay.
Well, there you go. I don't know what year this was. I'm trying to.
Chris Kaman's another good random NBA player of the week who would have been a good candidate.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll start shouting out a random player and a random game that they had that was just like went off. You know what I mean?
Bring it back once in a while. I did like random NBA player of the week. That was always kind of fun. And now a word from our sponsors.
So a bit of a situation with the Boston Celtics. and their coach. Before we get into it, I will say I didn't like the speculation from social media.
No, it was nasty.
Yeah.
Like,
So
it was nasty all around.
with that being said, there was a decision to suspend Udoka for the entire 22-23 NBA season. There was an investigation and apparently a law firm involved with multiple violations of team policy, which is what they came out with originally. But it has come out that he was having a intimate relationship with a female member of the organization. So a year suspension it is. Where are you with this?
I think because it was such a bizarre situation. Because at first you're like, Ime
Well, and
Udoka
Woj
suspended for a year. You're like, what on earth could have
and
possibly happened? Because we're talking about the Celtics just making the finals last year. Like, this is one of the breakout success stories. His first year, he takes the
yeah,
Celtics to the finals. And at first, you're kind of like, what could be done? And this is where it got, and this is kind of the beginning of where it was nasty to me, because they put the quote out there with just no like remote context, and then so everybody started speculating right away, and that's when it kind of broke out, where it was
there
like,
was yeah.
where it
A
was like,
lot
okay, Udoka had an affair with somebody in the organization, but it was consensual, which, okay, good, like, that's fine. There's
yeah.
nothing criminal related there. But I think everybody then rushed to be like, hey, without, mind you, hearing anything from the organization, any
Right.
context of anything, people just rushed out to be like, well, why is this a big deal? It's his personal life, which I agree with to an extent. Like, the cheating, that's his marriage, that's his own problem. They can deal with that
Him
however they need
him and
to.
Adam Levine can hang out and talk about that.
Right. Yeah, they'll go through it together. But I didn't like how people just started speculating about random members that, or
Female
random women that work in
coworkers.
the Celtics organization. That was
And
really
and
nasty.
and people from the organization have come out and not been happy about that. You know what I mean? Like, there's been comments about that. I've seen that everywhere right now. But I agree. Like, it was like, yo, what are we doing? Like, just taking
Well,
screenshots of their employee page to like see who it might be. I just that kind of
it's the
sucks.
worst parts of breaking news on the internet, and it
Yeah.
is. It's something that, like, I mean, having been in the industry, having been out of it now, like, everyone rushes to be first, and it shouldn't be that way.
Well, and that was
It is more about getting it right.
that was the weird thing that caught me off guard too, is when Woj tweeted about it. There was like a graphic made for it too. And I was like, we're making graphics. If Woj is making graphics, then like this is big.
It's
Like,
a
it
big
was
deal. No,
weird.
and you knew it was big right away, because you're like, I mean, there was no possible basketball reason that Udoka would have gotten suspended after last year. Like, that was, it's among the 9 zillion other reasons that we were high
Now,
on the Celtics again going into this year. But it's just, I mean, the more that's come out, and I guess people have started to walk it back a little bit and retract it, but it's like, I mean, the more that's come out, I mean, especially there was a report from Shams that was pretty damning, where it was talking about, like, yeah, they had a consensual relationship, but there were situations where it started to get uncomfortable. The organization knew about it and had been investigating it for months. Like, it is a situation where he broke team rules, and it was a team decision. Like, the NBA didn't suspend Ime Udoka. This is a Boston Celtics decision. And I mean, I think also everyone's guaranteeing it's a lock that he'll be back. Depending what happened here, and depending how this investigation goes, like, we'll see. But
and
I
they
think
said they did say a decision about his future with the Celtics will be made at a later date. But I think it is important to say that it was like a team decision to do the year, mainly because when you see a coach suspended for a year, or an NBA person suspended for a year, you then look at what this like Sarver situation, and he was suspended for a year. So like it was like quick to be like, wait, whoa, they were getting both the same similar penalty. I know there was money involved with Sarver, but like there was that quick like, oh my gosh, is it that bad? Like, did we get to that level of whatever was wrong here? And so, that was something that came to my mind, at least when we first heard this news. So yeah, it'll affect the Celtics obviously for the season. They're going to be without their coach. Last year things started rocky, and they were holding team player only meetings like 3 weeks into the season. So I think there is a level of conversation to have as how much he was involved with turning that team around. It was obviously,
A
as
ton.
the
I
coach,
mean,
he
he
has
was a
to be a
huge
big part
reason
of it.
for it. He deserved all the credit for it. I mean, that was
Right.
one of the stories of the year. Like they bought into his system, got the personnel for it,
Yep.
and they made it work all the way to a finals run. Like from an X's and O's perspective, there's no doubt in anybody's mind that this is going to be a colossal loss for Boston.
Right.
Um, and they've got the interim in place, but it's just, yeah, especially like you said, weeks away from training camp. It's just, look, if there's a months long internal team investigation going on and it reached a situation where the woman was uncomfortable, then yeah, it's a problem. And I think you do have to, there has to be a punishment there. And if it's severe enough to warrant an entire year, like, again, I think more will be revealed. We're going to learn more about what happened here. Cause I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he comes back to Boston. Um, I'm not suggesting that this is some, horrific, everything here was consensual. This was not a crime. This was not, anything super egregious. But yeah, there's going to be a consequence to that action. And we'll see what happens there with the future. But at the minimum, like we said, he's not playing a year. On top of that, a double dose of bad news for the Celtics this week with Robert Williams now getting surgery on the knee. Initially, this was a scope. It looked like he was only going to be missed about 4 to 6 weeks. Now we're looking at 8 to 12, which puts him back in about December at the earliest. We'll see if he plays earlier, if it's like a post-Christmas December. Obviously, this was the knee that had severely limited Robert Williams throughout a large portion of the playoffs.
And that's the
He was
part that
playing at 80%, playing through it, was great when he played through it. We gave him, he was a warrior for that, like no doubt about it, put it all on the line. You just hope that this can get right because he was phenomenal when he was healthy last year. Like he was one of the best defenders in the entire league. You hope that this doesn't become a lingering problem.
well, and that's the problem that I had with it was like we knew this knee needed to be fixed in the playoffs last year, and I get like you're trying to avoid surgery and you're speculating whether or not it's needed or stuff. But by not pulling the trigger right off the rip, again, I wasn't in the room, so maybe that wasn't a thing they talked about. But by not doing it right off the rip, now you're going to miss him for a good part of the season and potentially ruin his run at Defensive Player of the Year, which we thought was pretty much he was going to be in the conversation for. But if you're going to miss that many games, I mean, there's a chance that knocks you out of that contention. I know players maybe don't fully, go into a season wanting to do that, but we thought he was going to be an easy candidate for that award this year.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. And like we said, it's been, there were a lot of reasons to like their offseason. And you look now and it's like Gallinari's hurt. He's going to miss the whole year. Robert Williams isn't going to play till December. It's really hard to make the
Coach
NBA
is
finals.
gone.
Right. Coach is not
is gone.
here for the year. It's really hard to make the NBA finals back to back. And again, I still think the Celtics are going to be fine. Their stars are there. Like I think the continuity that they kept is only going to help them get better. But yeah, this is not the way you want to start a Eastern Conference title defense for sure.
In an Eastern Conference that seems like they're pretty legit this year. Like it's going to be pretty thick with teams that are no pushover teams, essentially.
No, yeah, there's not a single, we've talked about this for weeks, I feel like, but it's like 1 through 10 in the Eastern Conference is loaded, and I don't even think people at the bottom are going to be that bad. So, yeah, it's definitely one of them ones for sure. All right, who's balling, who's falling, our NBA version of the stock market. We always like start with the good for the bad. So, Justin, I'll start with you. Who's balling this week?
Short balling for me, Andre Iguodala announcing on his podcast that he's re-signing with the Golden State Warriors for a 19th season. The dude's got to be exhausted.
I mean, it's not like he's playing heavy minutes a ton anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to be honest. I was surprised after they won the title. You would think that this is a year where he goes out. Maybe it's a good way to retirement. He comes back with the Warriors.
But there's a good chance the Warriors do it again. So
Of
why not go
course.
off on 2 rings?
Yeah, I mean, he's in this hybrid, essentially coach role anyway, more or less. Like I think Iguodala really likes working with the young guys. I mean, there are a lot of people in that organization who credit him for working with Wiggins last year, working with Gary Payton II last year. Helping them through the habits, and he did play in the playoffs. Like this is not a situation where, again, no disrespect to the OG in Miami, but this is not like Udonis Haslem where he's playing like 7 minutes a year. Like Iguodala has played at times. He again is far from the option that he was in 2015 when they were getting this
Mm-hmm.
dynasty started. But yeah, I mean, for Iguodala, again, it's at a point where he's always loved being in the Bay Area in Golden State. Again, we kind of getting the best of both worlds. I think, like the dynasty, I think the young guys in the infusion kind of inspired him a little bit. I think this would have been a different story a few years ago, but I mean, yeah, if he's having fun, why not come back one more time? I know everyone is projecting this to be his last year, but I'll tell you what, though, once you get 19, like, you kind of get close to 20, and you wonder if that doesn't factor at all, too.
And
But
once you hit 20, why not go 25? Once you're
yeah,
at
well,
25, why not go 30?
that feels a little ridiculous. I mean, let's not run away here, but yeah, definitely an incredible NBA career for Andre Iguodala, no matter what. All right, balling for me this week is actually going to stay Warriors related. We have proof of life of James Wiseman. Steve Kerr says James Wiseman's been in the gym, running a lot of 5-on-5 scrimmaging a little bit. So there's kind of still working to get him back into game shape. But this is tangible news from Wiseman. Obviously, it's pure house money at this point. The former number 2 overall pick for the defending NBA champion. And so the fact that you've got him just waiting, I mean, if you can get any contribution from him at this point, it's going to be absolutely incredible. Obviously he would add an element that they've never really had before, like that traditional center. I mean, I know Dre has held that down for a while, and I guess they had Andrew Bogut back in the day. But I mean, Wiseman is way more dynamic. Like, no offense to Kevon Looney, like Looney was incredible for them in the playoffs, but like they're not going to be nearly the offensive threat that Wiseman would be if he's healthy.
Wasn't Zaza there too? Zaza Pachulia?
Yeah, I mean, Lord, don't mention him around Spurs.
I know. Yeah, I see the first headline is Wiseman's dedication to Warrior pickup games impresses coaching staff. I mean, of course, what the hell else are you going to say? Like,
well, he's trying to fight it. Well, no, I mean, it's been a really rough start to his NBA career. It's been a lot of injuries. It's been a lot of, you're hoping the kid can come back and play healthy because, again, he was taken high. There's expectations there. Like, you hope it can work itself out.
You do. It's just like that kind of headline to me is like, of course they're going to say that. What the hell else are they going to say? We're not impressed.
Yeah, he stinks. We're moving on.
Yeah. Like, what are you going to say in that situation? Of course,
could you imagine if they did that?
If a coach just came out and was like, nah, man, I ain't impressed by it. Like, he's here, but like, is he really here? I feel like, oh, damn. Well, then like everyone would go crazy with it. So I guess that switches us over to falling on the negative side of everything. I actually have 2.
Okay.
We'll go with the low-hanging fruit one first. 3 years ago this month was when LeBron attempted to trademark the Taco Tuesday, and it got denied.
Oh my God, dude, that was egregious. And like, I appreciated those videos, but like, yo, LeBron, there is no planet where you get to claim Taco Tuesday. Like, some things are just, listen, we need some things on this earth, and that is one of them. And that no way. That would have been so ridiculous.
And then on top of that, Ben Simmons is talking on some podcasts. JJ Redick's podcast was one of them. There's a few others. And he is trying to clear up some situations that obviously didn't go well with the 76ers. The one that I'll give him, and I'll give him this, on JJ's podcast, he came out and was talking about how everyone was giving him, crap for having a phone in his pocket during practice. And he said it was a jersey. I've gone back and looked at the photo. I kind of believe him on that one. Like, it doesn't look like a phone.
Stop defending this bozo, Justin. Enough. Like, stop defending him. There's nothing to see here. Show up on the basketball court. I'm tired of excuses for this guy. Like, I do care about mental health, so it's hard for me to rip him like this. Like,
well, that's the other part. Is like,
it is a delicate balance, but like, I don't like nothing about Ben Simmons' conduct and how that was handled makes me feel any ounce of sympathy for him.
Sure.
He had a little, like, did he get thrown under the bus by Embiid and
Doc?
By Embiid and Doc a little bit? Sure. Did Ben Simmons also not show up and do his job and just like stubbornly refuse to improve at all? Yeah, that's also true. It's fair to be upset with the fact that he never got better.
That being said, I agree that there is some blame to place on the 76ers a little bit. And Austin Rivers commenting is probably not the player that should be commenting.
Well,
It's like,
yeah, I
dude,
mean,
you're the coach's son. Like,
there's
dude.
no love lost with Doc, and I don't think
I
there's any
know.
love lost with him with Embiid
I
either.
don't
And
think
I
so
mean, he was
either.
talking about Shaq and Shaq not reaching out, but again, it's just like I agreed with Shaq when he went on that thing. I'm just tired of Ben Simmons. I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear Ben Simmons talk. I want to see Ben Simmons play basketball.
And
That's
that's
what I want to see Ben Simmons do.
And Shaq, I was listening. I think it was his podcast. It might have been, but I was listening to Shaq talk about it, and he was like, "Look, I was harping on him. Ben DM'd me. I'm going through some mental stuff, and I backed off. I still made some comments. I backed off though. I wasn't like as hard on him." And then he's like, "But all I'm hearing right now, like you're saying, is excuses. I don't want excuses. Just make it happen."
Like,
So
it's tough. Like, I don't deny that Philadelphia is a tough place to play. Like, it is. Like, Philly can be hard on their athletes if they don't perform in their
of
expectations. And I
course,
think, but the problem that frustrates me with Ben Simmons, it is like Ben Simmons always had support from the city. The city wasn't what I mean, even in that game 7, that last game he played there, like they were with him all the way until the end. It did. It hit a straw, and I know it always keeps going back to that missed dunk. And again, yeah, Joel and Doc probably shouldn't have thrown him under the bus like that. I don't think Joel in 2022, given what I saw last year on the leadership front, probably does that anymore. I think there was a lot to be learned from that because they did. But I mean, it's hard to argue with it. Like Ben Simmons not performing is a big reason they lost because it's true. There's no planet where that team should have lost the Hawks. I'm sorry. I will never, ever, like, of all the losses they've taken in the playoffs over the years, I could live with Toronto.
yeah,
Toronto won the finals. I could live with Miami last year. Miami was a great team. That one, they had no business losing. I don't care
no,
how well Atlanta played against Milwaukee. The Sixers know they had no business losing that series. And, it's a tough situation. So I understand that. And I think it is a tough place to play, but it's also like Ben didn't do himself any favors. And I guess that
no,
was my frustration. Like you just quit. Like you just stopped showing up. You stopped doing your job. You didn't like it got a little hard for you for the first time in your life and you couldn't handle it.
yeah, I agree.
It's just like I've seen NBA guys with bigger burdens than that. And I know that's like maybe a bad comparison, but it's like, yo, do you remember when LeBron lost the finals to Dallas? How bad and toxic it was? And you know what he did? He went out and worked with Hakeem Olajuwon and got better. We've never
Yeah.
seen that from Ben Simmons. It's just constant excuses.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's, I mean, I'm sure he'll be making some more comments and we'll mark
Play
whenever
basketball. That's when I want to hear you play. Play bleeping basketball. Enough.
I'm looking up the 76ers schedule to see when they have the Nets. Oh, Monday, October 3rd. Oh, preseason though. That's not
Nobody cares about. Yeah, nobody cares.
I was
about
like,
preseason.
Shoot, it's actually kind of close. Let me see if I can get to the regular season. When do we get?
I mean, it'll be a lot. There's no doubt about it. Like division game.
November.
Brooklyn.
November 22nd. Mark it in the calendar. Brooklyn at Philly. Whew.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, they already booed him a lot after the trade. And I mean, Sixers got smoked that game.
Yeah.
KD and Kyrie went crazy, but
Of course they did.
Well, I definitely think it'll be a little different, of course, when Ben is on the floor, no doubt. All right, falling for me is Robert Sarver, and this is tough because Robert Sarver is going to make like $1 billion off this deal, so like it's hard to say that like he's falling. But Robert Sarver is beginning the process of selling the Phoenix Mercury and the Phoenix Suns. This, of course, after the just bombshell report that came out after last week in the organization, all the things that were going on, poor treatment of women, racist stuff going down. And so that process is going to begin, which is obviously great for both of those fan bases going forward, great for those organizations. You can get rid of the drama right away. Like, I think there are plenty of people who wanted Robert Sarver out well before this report. And I think in the case of those organizations, like, yeah, get somebody in there who's going to do their job and care and not conduct themselves like Robert Sarver did. But yeah, again, that is the downside to this. And it was the downside with Donald Sterling as well. It's like, yeah, because he owns them, they're going to have to sell them. He's going to make a lot of money. Like the Phoenix Suns, especially now with them having been good here in the past couple of years, they're worth literally over $1 billion.
Yeah, there's a really interesting article if you want to. Actually, I think it's a podcast. Bill Simmons did it on a podcast, if I remember correct, talking about how Adam Silver was essentially playing 3D chess in this scenario to get Sarver to have to sell the Suns, essentially. I would suggest listening to it. I was kind of reading like a transcript of it. before our podcast. Very interesting read. And I thought it was pretty interesting if you want to check it out for yourself. But yeah, I mean, here we are. I think we talked about this last episode. I said once money got involved, once PayPal's talking about not coming back as a sponsor, like of course money's gonna talk,
Yeah.
and here we are gonna go. So like I'm not surprised that we are here now.
Yeah, every major NBA player had said something. It was for sure
I
a
think it was
matter of time.
I think Jake Crowder tweeted about not going to practice or something at one point. The tweet was deleted,
Well,
but
he may be gone from Phoenix in general. Like that's a situation to watch developing. If he ends up getting traded, if he's not coming back. But yeah, he did have a deleted tweet that said something about him not showing up. I don't know if that was Sarver related. That seemed more like it was Phoenix Suns related than
maybe
Robert Sarver related. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that because obviously, he's another guy who every playoff team is going to want to at least inquire in. No
right.
doubt about that. All right, so want to end the show on a little bit of a higher note. Kind of some bummers today. Obviously, the Udoka stuff is pretty tough. But CJ McCollum, 2-year, $64 million extension to stay in New Orleans. The Pelicans essentially now have him locked up for 4 years. Which the first reaction is, besides the fact that he was great for them in the locker room and really stabled them out last year and really, I mean, essentially was what they needed. I think the reaction, though, initially from an X's and O's perspective is, CJ McCollum is 33 years old at this point. You wonder, you got 4 years, I think $120 million now tied up into him over those 4 years. Is his game going to age well? And I honestly think it is. And that's why I like this deal for the Pelicans. Like CJ can shoot the basketball. Like I think he can play off ball. I don't think do I think he'll lose some of his ability to be as dynamic of a playmaker when he, attacks the ball? Yeah, I think for sure as he gets older, like that will naturally go. But I don't think it's a situation where he's going to just play himself out of contention or out of the rotation, I should say, by the 4th year. I think he genuinely will be a good player for the Pelicans. And obviously, if nothing else, like a great guy to have locker room wise to help these young guys grow.
Well, on top of it, he's one of 7 players to average over 20 points in the past 7 seasons. So, like, I think that's a big part of it too. Like the dude's a baller. We kind of saw what the Pelicans looked like last year without Zion, and I'm interested enough to run it back a few more years with Zion to see if it can gel and if Zion can get healthy and on the court. So I'm about it. I like the money. Like you said, he could play off ball. We saw him do it with Dame, when they were doing their thing in Portland. So here we are. Let's roll it and let's see where it goes. I'm all about paying the guy. He seemed like a good veteran presence for them as well, even though his entrance into the team was kind of rocky, where I think he made a comment about Zion not reaching out to him or something like that, or Zion I don't know.
They were asking if he had linked up with Zion yet, and I think that was kind of near that was a peak rockiness with New Orleans and Zion in general.
Right.
I think CJ deserves a lot of credit for kind of helping smooth that over, for helping to get him back in the fold. I mean, that was one of the most disappointing franchises in just the league last season when he got there. Everything was bad. And I mean, even when they kind of made that move, I think there were a lot of people who questioned. They're like, is CJ McCollum the guy to really turn this around? Like, is this a bit of an overpay? What exactly is the thinking here? So far, it's been worth every penny because I mean, right off the rip last year, the fact that they turned it around, got themselves into the playoffs, like that really was one of the bigger second half success stories in the league. All the young guys that stepped up and have developed. And I mean, it is. You can point to that trade and be like, that probably was the start of that turnaround. Like he did provide stability there. He did provide leadership. And again, you see guys like, Herb Jones and Jose Alvarado like rave about him and how much he's been able to do for them. So yeah, I mean, it definitely deserves a lot of credit. And again, when you bet big on a guy in your 30s, I say all the time, shooting the basketball is the most important skill to have in the NBA. CJ McCollum is going to be able to hit that shot.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, where do you think? So, in terms of the West, like the Pelicans are kind of I think they're the quote unquote sexy contender pick, if that makes sense. Because you have the bona fide ones, right? Like you have Golden State, you have. I think Memphis is probably in that mix. You've got Phoenix, you've got the Clippers, assuming health. I would have Denver in that mix as well. You've got Minnesota, and then you've got the Pelicans there. So it is a bit of a tough one. But I mean, I think there are a lot of people who are looking at the Pelicans and saying, hey, if you add, like, look what this roster did last year, how many games they were able to win, how Brandon Ingram stepped up, your career year from Jonas Valanciunas as well. It's like they're all the recipes of you add Zion into that mix, and suddenly they can take off really fast.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way, like, I'm trying to think of an equivalent of like somebody who was missing last year. It's their depth isn't quite the same, but it wonders with Donovan Mitchell kind of in Cleveland, where it's that way, where it's like, yo, you add this guy and didn't really subtract anything at all, or at least of who was playing a ton last year. And it's like, yeah, you can see them take off here pretty quickly. I think that's I don't know. I'm hard pressed to put them there just yet, but they're going to give teams fits, and I think they're definitely going to make the playoffs.
I agree. I think like a huge plus for them would be able to just essentially flip into that 5 spot where the Utah Jazz are. Like that would be huge for them. I think there's some other teams that are going to be contending for that spot as well to get in there and not be in a play-in tournament. But I think if they can get there, that would be huge. I do see that there is on ESPN they dropped this news a hour ago. Markelle Fultz is out indefinitely after suffering a fractured left big toe.
I was literally about to bring this up, and I just I saw this as well. Yeah, I mean that's a bummer. I mean, it's not going to be obviously, like, this doesn't look like it's going to be some injury that should hopefully, knock on wood.
Yeah, it's just like the dude just can't catch a break. It feels like,
Yeah, it's like every time he gets going, there's something minor here. And again, thankfully in this case, it's minor. But for a Magic team that has a lot of good vibes going in this year, there's a lot of genuine excitement around the Orlando Magic for the first time in a while. I mean, it's obviously Paolo Banchero showing out for the 2 games he played at Summer League will do a large portion helping that, but it's other things too. It's Franz Wagner going crazy over at Eurobasket, and shout out to Spain bringing home the glory there. Bo Cruz, man, Juancho Hernan Gomez getting it done, leading the way for Spain, bringing home some gold in Eurobasket. Somebody said they couldn't defeat the Boa Challenge, so a little tough there for France, but yeah, in terms of the Magic, I mean, the good thing is they have depth, though. I'll tell you what, their guard depth is a little bit tested now because you've got Gary Harris out with his torn meniscus too. So you got him and Fultz set to miss significant time. I mean, you wanted to give minutes realistically to Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs. Like, these are the guys you really want running it, but it's like, yeah, you're going to need them to step up now if Fultz isn't ready to go. Terrence Ross is still there. I think maybe he gets back into the rotation a little bit more with this news, but I mean, yeah, when you add it on top of the Gary Harris injury, then I think it's the combo there that makes it a little bit more difficult to manage, because he's a guy that you would imagine would jump in right away. And that's a big reason they brought Harris back initially, and not just to play the veteran role. Like, they wanted him to play, some important backup guard minutes.
I agree. So bummer for Fultz. That news just dropping a little bit ago. Wanted to make sure we hit that in this episode before we got out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, again, not to keep comparing them to Detroit for the 10th straight episode, but those kind of the 2 comparisons in the East where you could see them jumping, and these are the type of things that would limit that a little bit. Thankfully, again, nothing too major, and it's not one of the guys that they're really, I think Magic fans really need to see Banchero play this year, put it that way, mentally. Like, OKC, it's a little tough with Chet Holmgren, but they're kind of like on this little more of a longer runway anyway. Definitely a huge bummer, because that's where it's like you finally start to see a couple of your guys play this year. Like, look, I know I don't live in Orlando anymore, but it's like the Magic fans need Banchero in their lives. Like, they are desperate for some competitive basketball. And it is like the excitement around this team this year is palpable. Like, I think it started to, really the second half when they were playing hard. They were losing a lot of games, but they weren't the soul crushing 30-point blowout variety. They were competing in a lot of these games down the stretch. So, but again, the young guys are going to have to step up, especially Jalen Suggs. This is a great time for him. Like, they would love to see him, go out there and be able to do what he can do. Obviously the number 5 overall pick from a few years ago, a lot of hype on him coming into the league. Thank you everybody for listening to this episode of the Driving Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys as always. Again, leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Amazon Music, anywhere you find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep, and we've got a YouTube video versions. If you'd like to check it out, just search Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube. We will be looking for number 51. If you would like to be number 51, hit us up.